Welcome to BlackUSA.news morning show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real.
Greetings and salutations, all my friends out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the privilege and honor of being the host of the Black USA News morning show. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. No, I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to do that to you this morning, but I'm feeling good this morning. I'm feeling good because we get to talk about the future. We get to talk about not just about the future, but how we set the stage to ensure that the future generations, that students have the resources they need to be successful. And the way that we do that is that we make sure that we're in positions that we can support teachers. We're going to talk about supporting teachers. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm having fun. Y'all know why I'm giddy, right? Yeah. Well, if you look at the calendar, you realize that it's not Titillating Tuesday. So y'all probably like, what's going on? Why are you so giddy if it's not Titillating Tuesday? I'm going to tell you why, because I have one of my favorite people on with us today, Dr. Quinhon Scott. Dr. Scott is not new to the show. She is an expert in education, particularly when it comes to leadership and executive education coaching. So I'm excited to talk to her, but y'all know how it goes. They give me show notes, so I got to get myself together because, this is supposed to be something that looks at least a little professional. I don't really do professional all that well. But hey, we're going to do what we can to give y'all the show that you deserve. Hey, Quandra. Oh, you all need to make sure that you all check out Quandra Gaines, 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. Community conversations, resources, and gardening. I think I got that right. Either way, y'all need to make sure that y'all on Black USA News at 9 o'clock on Saturday mornings. And if you miss it, that's the beautiful part about the interwebs. You could always catch it in reruns. Oh, okay. Well, all right. See, they don't even know about reruns anymore. Do anybody even use that word anymore? Reruns? I don't think they do. I think it's because I'm old. And I appreciate being old. A lot of people talk about, I don't want to be old, blah, blah, blah. Nope. I'm grateful to be as old as I am, and I am hopeful to have a few more years left in me because there are a lot of people who didn't make it this far. So, trying to have an attitude of gratitude, as it were. One of the other things that I think is really important as we start thinking about, or, for me personally, living in an attitude of gratitude is really focusing in on service. How can we be of benefit to others? And I am happy that Black USA News gets to partner with an organization called Breadcoin. Breadcoin is a nonprofit organization that takes donations from the community, from organizations, and turns it into opportunities for individuals to deal with food insecurity, to deal with hunger, to deal with nutritional lack. And the way they do this is that they take the donations and they put the value toward this coin that they mint, the bread coin. Right now, each bread coin has a value of about $2.50. What happens is that once the coins are distributed through the network of service providers and community advocates and activists to people who we know really do need the help and support, once they receive them, they can go into any participating restaurant, any participating caterer, and utilize the bread coin, and they get to eat their meals, they get to pay, they get to engage with dignity. Nobody knows, that they have the bread coin because they may be homeless, or that they may not have any food, or they may have been denied benefits. They get to maintain their dignity. And for me, that's a really big deal. Having been on the other side of needing help, I know what it feels like and how much it takes to put yourself out there to ask for it. And for people to have to be able to maintain their dignity while getting help is a really, really big deal. So I'm very happy and proud of the partnership that we have with Breadcoin. So there is that. As you know, Maryland is having its election this year, 2022, and Black USA News has put together continuing election coverage. What we have done is pull together a lot of our footage and interviews, not just with our political pundits and show hosts, but also with the candidates themselves, and giving them an opportunity to explain and to present their platform to our viewers. We put all this together because we realize how important it is for everybody to have accurate information. Our democracy exists right now because there were people of good will who held the gap, who decided not to go along with the insurrection and the coup. And we are very grateful to them. And we want to make sure that we are able to elect people who are also so inclined. So make sure you go and check out our continuing election coverage. Let me tell you a little bit about my company, the Grinding Gang. We we help our clients go to the next level. What we do is that we help you make sense of the noise. There is a lot of information out there and what you should do with your business, what you shouldn't do. But one of the things that's missing is figuring out what your values are and how to apply them to your business success. And that's what we help you do at the Grinding Gang. Membership is free, and you have access to our knowledge library, business documents. We have examples of grants, examples of business plans, financial projections, and the like. And several of our events we have for free every month. So make sure that you visit us at www.grindinggang.com for more information, and so that we can help you with your business. There ain't no reason for you to not have the help that you need to take your business to the next level. Last thing before we jump into our guest, we're doing a special guest recruitment. Greetings and salutations, all my friends out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the privilege of being the host of the Black USA News Morning Show. The Black USA News Morning Show is currently recruiting guests for our upcoming series on single parents and co-parenting. We find that there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of isolation in the narrative about single parents. And we want to make sure that we keep this platform available to tell the true story, our people's story. The topics that we will be covering range from health, wellness, type of support, how important your social support system is, romance, and things of that nature. If you're interested in becoming a guest, you can check the link in the description. You can email us at info@grindinggang.com, or you can visit this link. Thank you so much, and have an awesome day. Okay, if you are a single parent or you are co-parenting, we want you to tell your story. We want to make sure that we provide a platform for social support for everybody. So hit us up and become a guest. Come and have some fun. It ain't as scary as it looks. It's actually enjoyable. Well, I know it's always enjoyable for me. I hope you have a good time as well. It looks like I've taken care of everything that I need to take care of. I'm checking. Give me a second. Let me. Yeah. That means I get to have fun now. All right, bring it to the platform, to the stage, the one, the only, the incomparable, Dr. Quinhon Scott. Hey, Doc, how's it going?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing really, really well. I am grateful for you to join us today.
I am grateful for being here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, absolutely, all the time. That's one of the cool parts. See, I tell the people all the time, I know dope people. And I know they're like, okay, he knows a few dope people, but every day I bring it to you. I bring you my friends and my family, and they all dope. So there may be people who haven't seen your last appearance on the show, so they may not know you well. And I know you've had a couple of changes since then. So introduce yourself to the people who may not be as aware of you as I am.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I am Quinhon Scott, and I have the privilege of serving as an operation liaison for Coppin State University. So what does that mean? That means that Coppin State University has a high school on its campus, Coppin Academy. And I am the bridge of communication between ensuring that Coppin State, as the overseer, fulfills its partnership. I support the leadership team through leadership development, analyzing data, in preparation to ensuring that students are prepared, but teachers have the tools they need in order for them to be successful, and the leadership team has what they need in order to support the teachers. Outside of that, this is year 23 for me as an educator.
Woo!
I know, right? I've served in many capacities, from teacher leader, for the last 10 years prior. Well, for 10 years, an entire decade, I had the privilege of serving as principal, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Washington, D.C. I think when I think about my career, some of the highlights. Also, I served for DC Public School Charter School Board, where I oversaw goals. So all charter schools, they have their own individualized goals. I work with those schools on goal development, business rules for their goals, and supporting the overall accountability. So when I look at this part of my career, I'm really about accountability and ensuring that the tools and resources that educators need in order to be successful, I have an opportunity to share those with them.
Okay, cool. And so one of the things that I know you best for is your professional development, that kind of engagement and training of educators, and how to be more effective. And the interesting part for me is that the trainings that you do are effectiveness in multiple areas. So you don't just do training on like, hey, how do we provide quality instruction in the classroom? It's also like, oh, hey, how do we manage our independence and our personal work-life balance? How do we manage burnout? How do we manage stress? And then it's how do we manage career? How do we advance through the ranks of education? So I've seen you do these trainings, even with data and stuff like that, in a number of different fields. But it all comes back down to, at least to me, your ability to engage people and to really help them understand things, taking maybe some complex or obscure information and really helping them figure out how to apply that. So if you could do me a favor and just talk to people about how you help people, how you help your mentees and the other educators that you train, how you help them take these complicated theories or these theories and really break it down into practice and application.
Yeah, absolutely. So I use the strategy 101 that you taught me. And you taught me this years ago, which was anything that you teach people, they should be able to apply it immediately. And I took that and ran with it. And so I, as a professional development expert, one of the things that I do is I make sure that anything that I am providing training or coaching on, that those tools people can just turn around and use immediately. So one is making sure that they're engaged, right? So making sure that it's comfortable enough, friendly enough, especially when we're talking about data, that people are willing to digest it because it may be scary. The other part is that engagement, making sure that it's fun and exciting. So I always make sure that there's that icebreaker, team builder in between, so that the day doesn't seem so long and robust, but there's time for adults to stand. There's time for them to turn off their critical thinking skills and just be in present for a moment. The other thing that I do that really has been a game changer over the last couple of years is developing group norms, right? Where we all agree that by the end of the session, these things will occur. And it really helps people stay present. It also helps them willing to push beyond their current way of thinking, even if they decide to shut down. I think that when you're a school leader and you're talking about complex decisions and occurrences, it's so easy to shut down and blame the emotions of teachers can't do it. They'll never get it. Where if you can digest it, then it makes it easier for other people. And then the last thing I'll say is that I use real life scenarios, right? So I just got finished doing a leadership workshop in early August. And one of the things that I shared is that I shared my personal story, right? The highs and lows when, as a leader, I was very successful, but, in the 10 years, there were many moments where I was unsuccessful. And being able to share those transparent moments allows people to know that it's okay to fall. So I would say those are probably the strategies that I share as I'm providing professional development to organizations and specifically leaders and teachers.
Awesome. I appreciate that, and actually, thank you for that. I didn't realize that you had taken that and ran with it, but like I'm grateful. Make me feel all impressed and feel good about myself. Like, oh, people be listening to me and stuff. Cool.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Um, so in your description of the professional development pieces and how that kind of plays itself out in getting people group norms and getting them engaged, and the focus is on teachers. And what I have found in some of my consulting and some of our work together with teachers is that the same kind of challenges and fears that many students bring to the table when it comes to STEM subjects like math, statistics, and things like that. Many teachers bring those same kind of fears when it comes to the data on their evaluations, the data when it comes to their performance and stuff like that. One of the things that I do appreciate is how you have explained and you keep data as a part of how you measure the effectiveness of what they do. It's like, okay, well, wait a minute. You say you're good, then show me some data that says you're good. Like how are you validating this assessment of self? If you could talk a little bit about how you have some of the examples of how you develop people and help them get over some of their data fears, because I think one of the things that we've talked about several times is that when people understand the data that is part of the story, it gives them greater control and agency over it. But again, if they can't get comfortable with it, none of that matters. So I've seen you do it. I've seen the outcomes of it a few times. So if you could talk a little bit about that, I think if teachers can be more comfortable with the data piece, it makes the practice of teaching a little bit easier.
Yeah, so let me share how I got to the data cycle piece, that where data really became the root cause of everything that I do. So prior to being an affluent data user, it was everything. All of my decisions were based on like and dislike. So what I realized is, as a leader, I hired people based on who I liked, who I believe I connected with. I liked people who I believe I liked and who I connected with. But as an educator, that wasn't necessarily in the best interest of students. And so in some cases, those people that brought the best data to the table weren't those that I necessarily liked on a personal level. And so I realized that I had to have this anchor in which there was no emotional bias, but it was anchored based on not who the person was, but the performance in which they provided for students. And one of the only ways to do that was really just to hone in on the data. So part of that was me being comfortable with understanding data. So as an English instructor, I was comfortable with some data pieces, but numbers were really scary for me. So because I understood my inabilities to really understand numbers in the beginning, I needed to identify people that were comfortable with numbers and bring them on my team and be open enough to let them know I don't understand, but if you teach and help me, I can understand and grow. So I'll say that being able to identify who you are and then align members of your team that can help and support, because although you may have the title as principal, you just don't know everything. And that's so important, because sometimes those keys empower you to think that you know it all. So once we started doing deep dives in data, it really began to provide me with the ability to be a visionary, to know what data was needed in order to tell the full story of the work that we were doing. And so I then began to look at both qualitative and quantitative data, because I didn't believe that in isolation, either of them were the best benefit for students. And then data evolved, right? So it went from just myself and my chief of staff looking at data together and working on the data numbers. Then we expanded that to the leadership team, so that we just didn't have the secret of who was doing well. The secret was among all leaders responsible for teacher growth.
Mm-hmm.
And as a leadership team, we walk through the data, we analyze the data. I align supplemental support. So we read lifelong learning material and we
Mm-hmm.
jigsawed it, because what leader has time to just read book after book?
Wait, Jigsaw? What is Jigsaw?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. So Jigsaw is a um, literate reading strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when you ask different people to read different sections of the book, and
Mm-hmm.
then they share out the section they are responsible for. So
Okay.
that way,
Thought you meant cutting up books and putting them back together. I was like, that's not going to be helpful.
I appreciate that. Sometimes as an educator, you use these words all the time that
Right.
all members may not know. So we would jigsaw the book, give each leader a chapter, and then they would be responsible for outlining the chapter and sharing the information. But
Mm-hmm.
supplemental information along with the data sets we were providing for the leaders were really important, so that they had both the qualitative and quantitative information in order to be able to begin making an understanding of what was in front of them. Then, after the leadership team had a clear understanding of the data and how we were going to use the data, and we did scenarios through this, we did role playing through this so that leaders would be comfortable talking to teachers. We
Mm-hmm.
then provided the teachers with the data themselves, giving teachers an opportunity to understand where the data came from.
Mm-hmm.
In
Mm-hmm.
some cases, teachers leverage our support and wanted to have one-on-one meetings. We did all of this before actually having a professional development around the data, because what I realized is that having one-on-one meetings before having a large group meeting allowed me to clarify many questions that I didn't think about from a leadership perspective. And then
Mm-hmm.
after about 2 weeks of safe practice is an opportunity where um, you teachers can work on their data, teachers can review their data, teachers can work on different strategies to support their data, or in some cases, improve their data. So, for example, in most districts, grades are provided quarterly. We review grades on a quarterly basis. If teachers had a very poor um, pass rate, then teachers were able to develop strategies to support students to increase their students' grades. And
Mm-hmm.
so that may be a safe practice where the leadership wasn't in the classroom. The teacher may have did an addendum to the curriculum in order to develop the safe practice strategy for students to increase
Mm-hmm.
their achievement. But ultimately, we were supporting the role of the goal, which is students improving their academic success in order for them to move on to other situations. And when I say other situations, whether that's college, whether that's career readiness, but we understand that students have to be successful in high school in order for them to be successful moving forward
Absolutely.
without additional support. So, not that they can't be, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they're not being fluid without additional support or supplemental support, but they can just transition between high school and college and career readiness. So then after that, we did whole group professional development. We had a professional development plan, which outlined what professional development would look like. So teachers were aware of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, I didn't do this, but in my latter years of providing professional development around data, I started doing office hours where teachers could push into the leader's office and ask courageous questions or share their feelings without being penalized, if you will, meaning that you could share whatever you wanted to share about the data, and I would be neutral in the conversation. And so that
Mm-hmm.
helped to develop trusting and safe practices between the teacher and the leader.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, the goal was for the teacher to do this, understanding that data guides how they teach and interact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can't be successful as a teacher if all your students are failing, but you need to know that students are failing. So there needs to be steps that as a teacher you successfully do in order for you to determine if you're doing your job as a teacher. So, for example, one of those steps would be you grade work regularly. So you're not waiting until the end of the quarter in order to grade all of this work and then put in all of the grades. And then you realize, oh my goodness, half of my class is failing when they really started failing weeks ago. But because of your delay as an educator, you didn't know that they
Mhm.
were failing. So just making sure that there was clear work-life balance,
Mhm.
teachers understood organizational skills and support, teachers
Mhm.
understood where they could go to for support if they did fall behind. And these were just some of the components of the professional development plan we utilized over time in order to support teachers.
Okay, and you touched on so many incredible points. I mean, that's we got like a whole nother show's worth of stuff that you just said right there. But one of the things that I want to just a real quick question, if you could respond, because I want to also help people understand that it's not magic. It's not like one day, I'm afraid of data on Thursday, but Friday I wake up and I am data master. Like, how long did it take you to get comfortable enough where you were able to, as a teacher, where you were able to utilize data more effectively?
Yeah, well, I'll say this in full transparency. As a teacher myself, I was never truly comfortable with data.
Mm.
I never understood how to use data as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that as a leader, I provided teachers with much more than I was provided with. I'll say that it took me a couple of months, maybe about 4 to 5 months, to get comfortable with what's the best data to use.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best data that's going to give me the most improvement? And I'll say this, there were things as a leader that I focused on, and I thought, this is great data. It helped the student body. This happens to a lot of principals. You see it changing the school, but it's not changing the educational outcomes. So when you look at the state test scores, when you look at how the school, the oversight of the school, all these great things you're doing isn't changing or impacting that. So let me give you a quick example. I spent money on additional social workers in Baltimore City public schools. When I was leader, I spent money on additional social workers and having a washer and dryer in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this encouraged more students and parents to feel comfortable coming into the building and engaging with stakeholders to be a part of the community. However, these efforts did not impact our state test scores. So, as a leader, I had to balance between what was actually going to help and provide support to students as a human,
Mm-hmm.
and then what could help us look good to say that we are doing the work, because people only pull up the school report card, especially when you're asking for money, and they only want to know what's your score on the Maryland State report card. So I understood the data was important. It was important for us to change the story of what was how many students were graduating, what was our graduation rate, how many students were going to college immediately after graduation. So that included taking the SATs, the ACTs, what was the score of that. It also included looking at what is the predictive measure for the students to be successful on a state exam? So you take the state exam in May, but there
Mm-hmm.
has to be benchmarks along the way so that
Mm-hmm.
all stakeholders are aware that the student is going to be successful based on these benchmarks. And so along the way, I developed this is what the data that I have, and this is the data that I need to know and digest in order for us to be successful long term. That took months just for me to do it. And then to my previous point, it took months for me to share with the leadership team. And then it took months for me to share with the teachers. So the first year, we were really behind. I had no idea what the scores were going to look like. I had no predictive measure. And it was just kind of like the luck of the draw, like fingers crossed, whatever happens, happens. By that second year, though, I had a much better understanding of where we were, I actually even had teachers, and I recommend this to all teachers, to identify how many students you need in order to pass, in order for students to be successful. So, for example, right now for Coppin Academy, this is all public information, so I can share. Coppin Academy's goal is that they will increase their English scores for the NCAP, which is the Maryland State Assessment, by 25%. So that means that every ninth grade English teacher needs to know how many students they need in order for them to meet the 25% mark. Let's just say, for the sake of time, the number is 34. So, and there's 2 teachers. So if you need 34, that means each teacher has to have, let's say 20, right? 20 students that they can guarantee, no matter what, that they're going to be successful in passing the MCAT. Now you need to identify, how do you know those 20 students are going to be successful? Also, you need to know, where do the other students fall? Do they fall so far below that they're going to need multiple bridge projects? Bridge projects is that if you're not successful on the test, you then have to take support in between in order for them to meet the mark. Right. And so ultimately, it's really identifying the goal. Where do you want to go? Making sure teachers understand the goal and narrow the goal down into details. How many students? What are the benchmark indicators? How do you know they're going to be successful? Do you have parents engaged in their success and what you're trying to do long term? And then being fluid with sharing that information ongoingly.
Now, you've used this word several times, and each time you give a response, there's a word you continually come back to. And I want to talk about it a little bit, because it seems like it's part of the crux of all of your decision making. You keep using the word support. You know, what kind of support do the students need? Making sure that you have the data, using the data to provide resources to support teachers. Is it just like that's your favorite word, you know, that filler, or is it really a central component of your strategy of empowerment and agency?
So no, that's not my favorite word. I would say my favorite word is, that's real, really.
That's so true.
This is a side note, right? But support, when I think about education, and I think about my philosophy on supporting teachers, what I realize is that support is ongoing, and support is actionable. And so it needs to have a voice. It also needs to have legs on what can teachers depend on from their leaders in order for them to be successful. So it's this partnership. The same thing with parents, right? What can parents depend on from the school in order for the partnership to be successful between parent and school, in order for the outcomes of the student to be successful? Outcomes, graduation, quarterly grades, long term, you know, what happens post graduation. So I just really believe in the village idea. No one can do it alone. Everyone needs ongoing support. And what does that support look like? And support really begins with you defining support for your organization, and you knowing that support isn't just a one and done, but it's cyclical.
Gotcha. Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because, you know, I was like, oh, wow, support. It's like, oh, no. And, you know, I know, having worked with you before and on some current projects, that in your in your engagement, it is a heavy focus on support and using data to really identify root causes, not just relying on somebody's gut. Because if your gut is right, there should be some evidence to support it. You know, and really trying to help people understand that evidence and instinct don't have to be separate. Actually, they should go pretty much hand in hand, and using your data to support that. The other thing that you really that I appreciate that you brought up is this idea that as you are using data, it's not punitive, it's instructive. It's not, I'm not showing you, look at the paper. That's why I know you need to be fired or you need to be put on a PIP. It's like, okay, along the way, before we get to the end of the quarter or before we get to your evaluation, what do we see here? Okay. Are there problems? Are they successes? How do we build on the successes? How do we mitigate the challenges? Because I'm an avid believer, just like with students. If we get to the end of the semester or the end of the quarter and you don't know what your grade is, then that's as an educator or as a leader, that's on me. Same thing with staff, is making sure that you have these conversations along the way, because it gives people an opportunity to adjust their behavior. And when you're able to bring in data and evidence to support that type of to support the support, then you create an opportunity, these safe spaces where people can experiment and recognize that, okay, we have a port that we can test some of this stuff and develop the data to show that this is an effective practice, or to see if it's an effective practice with this group of students. Not just treating all of them homogeneously, like, oh, if I know how to work with this student, then all of the rest of them are going to be the same, and I'll just do the same thing over and over again. So I appreciate that. I wanted to highlight that because I really think that it's important that as we're talking about and transitioning into a more focused conversation on what we can do as leaders in education and parents and community members and stakeholders, making sure people understand that as we're talking about data and we're talking about instincts, those don't have to be different. We're not suggesting teaching to the test or just doing the stuff to pass or just being all bleeding heart and just not caring about the data. That is a continuum, and the polar opposites don't work either way. So finding the places where there's overlap in individual students' lives, I think is much more functional than just trying to get them to get high test scores.
Yeah. And I'll just say this, that, I think it's both and. So data is absolutely for supportive measures, but it also can be punitive. If you are a teacher and, you have a percentage of failing 70 or higher over, multiple quarters, that is a courageous conversation that needs to happen. It can be perhaps the teachers in the wrong content, so they can be they have an English degree, but they're not strong in teaching Shakespeare, which is 12th grade British lit. So they feel more comfortable in going into 9th grade. So it's really ensuring that you have the right person in the right place and using data to determine that. It also may be clear that the person isn't best for that particular school. And so It's a matter of moving. So I'm not going to say that there's no punitive, because we've used data. Remember, as I shared, right, it's the non-emotional part. It's what's the data saying, and identifying from the teacher, why, what's your story behind the data? And you tell this all the time. The first couple of times we did data, we had a teacher that said, when I take out the number of students that don't come to class, my data increases tremendously. And so that teacher didn't feel comfortable coming to me, but that teacher felt comfortable coming to you. So the other part is that, like, it doesn't have to be the principal, right? Who cares? Like, long as the teacher has support, and that support can come from anywhere, that's the best thing that can happen. In fact, just to be quite transparent, there were so many times where if I really looked at the scope and sequence of what was happening, I really wasn't the one in charge per se. I was just the visionary, but I had such a great team, they could carry out the vision without me.
Now, and I want to, when I say punitive, I want to clarify, because I think that sometimes the challenge that people have is that the way data has been presented. And so it's like when I'm talking about it being punitive, as it is the justification for a punitive activity. The funny part, for a punitive decision, like, this is the data said we have to fire you. The way you described it is, for me, it's developmental. Again, kind of going back to that professional development and not punitive. Because even if the outcome is that this class or this content, this grade level or this school, or hell, even this profession is not for you, that's not punitive, that's reality. There is evidence that this may not fit you, and remembering that we're all here for, first and foremost, for what's in the best interest of the students. And so, especially the way that you've been talking about doing data, it doesn't seem punitive. And actually, the great point is when you talk to a teacher, and you use data along the way, when you get to the point where you have to do a PIP, there's no surprises. Because you've had all of those conversations. And for those of you all who don't know, a PIP is a performance improvement plan. It means that you done messed up, and now we got to come up with a strategy before you get fired. But the way that we're talking about using data, and this is also really good for teachers. And you know what? How about this? How about we're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna do a data training for teachers again, because I feel like the next thing that I'm about to say makes it necessary. I can't say this part without having committed to that next part, because I think that once teachers understand data and understand how to utilize it, it transforms their practice and actually even helps organize their resources. Because you go less from kind of a buckshot theory, like, all right, let me just do all of this stuff and hopefully these kids will get it, to, well, wait a minute. This kid, I'm starting to see patterns in their attendance or patterns in their homework. Or I'm starting to see that they're getting it or not getting it. I may need to do a retest. I may need to But if you don't have mastery or not even mastery, but understanding of the data, you're just doing stuff and hoping that it works. And so one of our commitment, if you down, we'll talk about this offline, because don't answer right now, because I'm not trying to be embarrassed on my own show, because we haven't talked about this before. That would be disrespectful.
Whatever you need, I'm down. So you don't even have to.
Because I want to make sure, because it's one thing that I get tired of so many people telling teachers what they need to do, how they need to, but you're not offering anything. It's like, oh yeah, teachers need to be more organized. Okay, how you helping? No, I said they need to be, not I have another job. And I think that it is time for us to kind of get off the sidelines, not even sidelines. Some of us are watching teaching happen, we on our phones sitting on the toilet. We need to get up off of it and really get engaged and contribute something, or shut the fuck up. That's where I'm at now. If you're not going to be moving in that direction to support teachers, just shh. Not for you. It's cool. And so, let's shift in talking about specifically, because support is such a big issue right now. It feels like there is call bullshit on myself. It does not feel like there is an active assault from the political elite class against particularly public school teachers. There is, from Florida's "Don't Say Gay" bill, which means that certain people that you are trusting to raise or to inform and educate your children, you don't trust their lifestyle for them to be public with their lifestyles. Like you are you're baking shame into the curriculum, and then asking them to do more. Like, oh yeah, we're not going to give you enough money. We're not going to give you enough supplies. We're going to give you too many kids, and you're going to have to sub classrooms. And don't be you when you get here. From that to assaults on ethnic educating true history and history, especially with racial bias. Again, an attack on teachers. If you say things that are evidence based, that you can prove, you can still be disciplined for it because it doesn't fit the narrative. This kind of independence of thinking. And so in the midst of all that, we have a global pandemic of coronavirus, a global pandemic of monkeypox. Apparently, we're about to catch another pandemic of tomato flu. Like, I saw that in the news yesterday. I was like, okay, now y'all just fucking with me, but it's real. Tomato flu is a thing. So I can't go to the zoo. I can't. Anyway, so all of this is happening. And literally what that means is that teachers little kids don't know how not to touch. So teachers are literally putting their lives on the line. And in Baltimore, Fox 45 on a regular basis is more than happy to what is that show called?
What, Baltimore in Crisis? No, Save Our City Schools.
Yeah. And they come up with these amazing titles all the time, like, and 17 teachers have and it's all of these things. So what can we do as educational, and by the way, not knocking educational leaders, principals, assistant principals, staff members. I know y'all got it rough too. and we want to provide some support for them as well. But right now, the in my opinion, if I'm wrong, call me on it, but it seems like the place where the most pressure is headed in the entire system is on the teaching level, that teaching class. The students are like, oh, we don't want it, and legitimately trying to figure out what the hell to do, because monkeypox, coronavirus, mask, no mask. How do we? I'm sorry, because I'm all emotional and shit, because I understand. I have a lot of friends who are educators, and I understand how pressing it is, and I want to help, but I don't know what to do. So help us understand how we can help the system, help the teachers.
Yeah. So one of the philosophies that I've carried with me is that education is life or death. Mm-hmm. And that premise was that the students that obtain a high school diploma, research suggests they live much longer than students that don't. So in the beginning of my career, it was so important to ensure high school diploma, because it's this idea that you have an opportunity to live longer. Mm. Now, I still have that philosophy, but it's anchored differently. Okay. And the reason why it's anchored differently is because students, the social ills of society, which you mentioned many of them, have now impacted public education so much so that you are bombarded with, the social ills of health, the social ills of community, still teaching, right? But the Maslow's hierarchy of needs come before you being able to provide instruction. That's something that, they don't teach you in school. No. That is something that the balance of heart and academic, which it's a very delicate balance across the board. And when I say across the board, K through 12, and even in higher education, it's a balance that very few people really get. So I would say that one of the things is that people like us, I'm thinking about like the Urban League, which we've served, NAACP, where grassroots organizations come together and really begin to provide the church, really begin to provide support and partner with schools, because the school just can't do it by themselves, because the weight of what's now coming into the school is far different than what it was just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So my biggest, like, if I had the wave the magic wand of the answer, right? This is the answer. The answer would be partnerships. Like, it's not more money. Like right now, schools have a surplus of money that they've never had before. ESSER funds 2, 3, and 4 that the state of Maryland has provided, which is additional funding due to COVID. So they provided schools with a surplus of funding, grant money that it won't last, but it's there for now. And then you have leaders like not knowing what to do with the money. Oh, what do? We should hire somebody. We should blah, blah, blah. But, we'll get a new curriculum. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like eeny, meeny, miny, mo. So you have the surplus of money. You're not really sure what to do with the money, or if the money will yield real results. In many places, you're not even sure what those real results should be, because the students are already so far below. So your bar for what results should be is minimum. And then in other cases, because the test has changed so much over time, there's been 2 years without any assessments at all. There's gaps of what success really looks like. And if teachers can fulfill this, if teachers have what they need as the experts to really provide training and teaching and learning for the students. So there's lots of gaps. I say there's so many. I think about, I used to attend Macedonia Baptist Church. And it was an older population, but they were retired educators. And one of the things that attracted me to the congregation was, I would say more than 40% of the members were retired educators. And there were so many gold nuggets of knowledge that existed just among the congregation that it really helped ground me in a lot of the work that I was doing, because there was an expert that I could just ask what they thought. So I think that we have to continue to utilize those resources, and I hold on to those resources now. We've transitioned to another congregation that's interesting, much younger. And they don't have that knowledge base, but I still tap into Macedonia Baptist Church in Baltimore City, because they have this knowledge base that you're not going to find. And so I think us bridging gaps to bring those kind of things to teachers in real time for real support would really be helpful.
So I love that. So one of the takeaways for me is that if you are a part of an organization that has any type of skill or resource, reach out to your school or to any teachers that you know to offer it. Because little things, the funny part is that I've helped a few teachers, and sometimes the stuff that's like really easy for me has frustrated and then taken them like, hours to get done. One of the teachers I was working with, she had found a curriculum online that she wanted to integrate some portions of it into her lesson planning. But the problem was that she wasn't able to convert the PDF. And so like she spent a lot of time, like I think she said hours trying to just retype it or cut and paste, and it just wouldn't work out. The formatting kept shifting and things like that. She sent it to me. I converted it for her, and she was, the next one, because she was telling me the problems that she had, and she sent it to me. I was like, well, send me the next one that you got to do, and I'll see if I can work it out. For me, I put it in a program that I have, hit save as, converted it to Word, sent it back to her, and literally it saved her hours of work. And so that, just talking to them about what some of their challenges are and seeing if you can help them, because sometimes we think, well, I don't know anything about teaching, I don't want to work with kids. But that's one of the misnomers about education, is that it's just educating. No, there's social services, there's nutrition and food, there's attendance, there's homelessness, there's risk assessment, there's mental health, there's administration. Because one of the biggest things that I remember, one of the biggest time drains for a lot of teachers was things like entering in grades. Like, that if you want to help a teacher, volunteer to enter grades. Yeah. What? Wait, you going, I'll grade them. You just, because a lot of teachers just sitting there. That's a whole afternoon. That's time that they're not developing lesson plans. That's time that they're not doing coach class. That's time that they're not teaching. It's them. And so if you can get in and I've seen them do it, because most of them have like, 20 kids per class, 4 classes, they have 80 kids that every assignment. Mm-hmm. So that's hours they have planning period. But if it takes hours to do that and your planning period is 90 minutes, do you see the math on that just doesn't even play out well? And so again, if you
want a break.
And if you are, again, I want to make sure that people understand it doesn't have to be big. You don't have to go get another degree, no certifications to just help. You don't even have to get a background check. Hey, just send me, I'll stop by, pick up the papers, or you could scan them to me, and I'll sit there and, oh, you know what? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go talk to my mother the next time when I see my mom later. I'm going to tell her that maybe she might want to do that. Call the old school that she worked on and volunteer with her teacher. Like, hey, let me do some of your lesson plans or things like that. The other thing that you mentioned about supporting teachers that I love is this idea of mentorship. And the funny part for me is that you talked about how much mentorship and insight that you were able to receive from the older population at the church you were at. But I'm not sure if you recognize that now you have become the mentorship at the church with the younger people that you're at. You become the resource. And I think that's also part of the service that we have an opportunity to do with teachers. If you've learned something, let's help. Also volunteering to come in and, talk about your career, talk about what you understand about literature or what have you. If you have an expertise, if you have a passion, if you have a topic, like I remember one time for me, I'm sorry, I'm getting excited again. I remember one time one of the teachers asked me, because of my legal background, asked me to teach a class on due process in the criminal context. It was funny because I was nervous as hell. I went through it. I started doing research on like best practices and communication with students, and it was so exciting. But guess what? And also I got set up. I thought she was talking about for me doing it one class. She wanted me to do it for all our classes. So I was like, oh, you got me. But what it was is that it was an opportunity for her, one, to not have to teach that period those periods, because I had it. Also to get me to shut up, because I was like, oh, this is not easy. Not that I thought it was, but I thought I was very capable. And how much work it took me to plan that one. I was like, oh, because I always put questions like, why don't we try to push students faster sometimes? Why do we spend all this time on one thing? Mm-hmm. One of the reasons I realized is because it takes a lot of time to prepare for the one thing. And so and also us understanding the student's ability to master this information. Another thing that I want to throw out there to share with teachers is opportunities. Speech to text is amazing. Pulling up your phone or your computer and just talking it in, it saves a lot on, not for data entry, but like a lot of the other stuff. That speech to text, utilize the technology, scan, OCR, and you know what? We might even bring that into the whole data conversation too, about how do you handle and manage and collect. Oh my God, it's gonna be amazing. YouTube University and Teachers Pay Teachers. YouTube, there's so much stuff that you can learn. And one of the other things that's out on YouTube is some amazing content from teachers who are doing like lesson plannings or their evaluation data, and some of these larger organizations that just have opportunities. You get to see what somebody else did. And again, not suggesting you just cut and paste, but it at least will inform your activities moving forward. And it's less things for you to think about. We want to be supportive and want to be helpful in any way that we can. You know what? I'm gonna volunteer you. Go ahead and tell people how they can get in contact with you, because you know how this stuff works. You know how to help them. Go ahead, tell them.
Yeah. Before I say that, I do want to say that one of the things that I am diving into is supporting parents with students that have disabilities. And so acknowledging what those student disabilities are, helping parents navigate the process, giving them support during the process. And so if you know a student who is struggling, they've been struggling for a long time, you're not sure why they're struggling, the school doesn't seem to be helpful, please feel free to contact me with that as well. Also, one more thing, if Fox 45 broke the news story last year about graduation. And so if you have a high school student and you're not quite sure, like how do you know they're going to graduate? They may, graduation is accumulation of credits and not based on time. And so meaning that you can be at school for 4 years, but if you don't have 21 credits, you still will not earn a high school diploma.
And 21 of the right ones.
21 of the right ones. Thank you for that. So those are some things that I am an expert in. Please feel free to reach out to me multiple ways. My name is on the front. So Quinhon Scott, without the period in the end, at gmail.com is the easiest way. That's my email address. I am also on Facebook at Dr. Quinhon Scott. You can reach me there. Or I also have a YouTube channel, PD Principal. And you can reach me there. So please feel free, subscribe to my channel. I'm in the process of updating new information as we speak. And so please feel free, like I am the expert that you can contact. And if I don't have the answers, I do believe the answer is in the room. So somebody I know may have the answer.
Cool in the gang. Make sure you all reach out to her, particularly, and we didn't talk a lot about this, but particularly for any educators who want to grow their professional engagement. There are there are teachers who aspire to be principals. There are principals who aspire to district roles and things like that. And I know you have a large expertise and helping people navigate those career spaces. All right, Dr. Scott, is there anything else you want to leave the people with, or just a goodbye?
I'll just say thank you so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure to see you and be with you. I appreciate you thinking of me as always.
Absolutely.
And look, at the end of the day, education is truly life or death, and it's up to us in order to ensure that we are being educated.
Amen. All right, I will look forward to talking to you soon. All right. Oops. That's what happens when I'm here by myself. I click buttons too quickly. Gets crazy up in here. Quandra said that she would like to be a teacher. Make sure you hit Scott up, Dr. Scott up. It's probably best. Her YouTube channel is fire. PD Principal, like professional development, PD Principal. That's her YouTube channel. I think it's also Instagram, because I be stalking my dope people. I got to know all the dopeness they doing. But if you Google PD Principal, you'll pull her up. Plus, her name is Quinhon. That's a very unique name in America. So there that is. Woo! That was a really great opportunity to talk about how we can help our educators and deal with some of the issues that are happening in the community, happening in the streets. Wow. It's always, sometimes I get disappointed when I get to the end of the show. I'm like, I had so much fun. But you know what? We're going to do it again. And I really appreciate you guys. We'll be Black tomorrow.